Good afternoon, Ellis County. Kevin Crouch here with Ellis County Weather. And for the second day in a row, we have strong, severe storms moving in from the north. The Severe Thunderstorm Warning has just been issued and does go until 4:45 p.m. And you can see a powerful storm up in Dallas. You see the outflow boundaries, kind of two outflow boundaries here, moving into northern parts of Ellis County there. And this storm actually is showing some signs of weakening. This is kind of what we saw yesterday, where the storms will peak, really hit their strongest point, and then they quickly start to weaken after that point. But that does not mean that they can't increase in intensity, which tends to usually happen after this broadcast is concluded. So, you know, I conclude the broadcast, I sit down, and then it swells up again. So I'm looking at the National Weather Service is getting reports of damage and that kind of thing too up in Dallas County. It doesn't look like anything too terribly major there. But you know, there are things to consider there, though, when you look at the winds being in the 55 to 60 mile per hour range. And I'm sweating in here. It is quite warm, apparently, and for the second day in a row, these storms decide to come in when I'm trying to get some chores and errands done. You know, this is what happens when your weatherman tries to go out and get things done. It storms. So we'll kind of zoom in a little bit on Ellis County and show you that the storms are not here yet. But what we are seeing is this outflow boundary as it continues to move on to the south. And in Midlothian, funny enough, you see these two outflow boundaries coming together. A little bit of friction there, so might be seeing some rain there in western parts of the Midlothian area right now. But we move up, and these are the storms that we're watching, all the way from about Mansfield on up into Rockwall County there, and we put this into motion. They are moving due south. So again, normally we see our storms coming in from the west, due south from the north. We'll take a look at a couple of things. First, we'll take a look at the winds. There are some areas of some gusty winds, but not as intense as they were. Of course, this is the velocity view, so this is showing us where the strongest winds are. Of course, you can see those winds moving south that are associated with that outflow boundary. That's that old warning that just expired. You can see some of the brighter greens here, but we're not quite seeing the intensity that we saw a moment ago. So let's take a look at the hail. Possible hail core south of Grand Prairie here. So south of Grand Prairie, west of Duncanville there, just south of Lakeview. So this is where you're seeing possibly the heaviest hail going on, or the largest hail going on, but not anything too terribly awful. And let me take a look. Yeah, we just got the winds increasing here at the studio. I'm kind of moving the curtains here to kind of take a look and see what's going on here. So it looks like we have that shelf cloud, that beautiful shelf cloud moving through right now, right over the studio. So that's associated with that outflow boundary. Again, the storms are not arriving in Ellis County yet. We're getting that outflow boundary first. So let's go back to the regular radar so you can kind of see where things are happening. Again, this is all in Dallas County. We haven't gotten any of this in Ellis County yet, but you can see the county line there, and it is moving our direction. But it does look like the storm is weakening just in general. I'm not sure this storm even really has severe limits at this time because it has weakened quite a bit. I think if we put the loop on again, you look at this just to the east of Grand Prairie, where you had all that pink and dark red and all those colors. That's where most of the possible hail activity and those kind of things existed, but that has weakened, and so as it moves into Ellis County, it looks like it will probably start to kind of fall apart a little bit and weaken generally as it goes. We take a broader view of the whole area here. There was quite a storm that moved through Fort Worth. Looks like that has really kind of died out. And if anything, it looks like this storm here in Dallas County and the storm over in the Weatherford area kind of sucked all the energy out, right? So the storm that was in Fort Worth has continued to move south, but that has kind of fallen apart. we're going to continue to watch all of this activity as it moves on to the south. And you can see just outflow boundaries all along this line as those storms move in. And then they kind of, the core of the storm drops and all of that air, that cool air pushes downward. And then, of course, when it hits the ground, it's just like a bucket of water goes outward. So that's what you're seeing is it's hitting the ground and then spreading out in all directions. So that's why we have these rounded outflow boundaries that are pushing out. Now, these outflow boundaries can do a couple of things. They can either cause new development ahead of them, or sometimes can cause new development or strengthening behind them. So it really kind of depends on, what's going to happen there as far as what this outflow boundary will actually do to this storm. Let's zoom back in on Ellis County here. Here's that warning. Severe thunderstorm warning that goes until 4:45 p.m., so about another hour. And this is this goes pretty far into Ellis County, just barely hitting Ennis there, just north of Italy, south of Maypearl there. I'm not sure if they're going to need to extend that warning. We will find out. There's been a lot of people asking, well, is the storm going to be severe when it gets to Ellis County? These storms, it's really hard to tell. This is not spring, where we have just one massive line of storms blowing through that's going to maintain its strength all the way through. This is late summer, early fall, when we still have this kind of summer-like atmosphere that's going to allow storms to weaken and then strengthen and then weaken and strengthen and just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. So that's really, let me go ahead and close these now. That's really what we're going to see the majority of the time with, convection that happens. And then as we get further into the spring, or further into the fall, rather, hopefully we get a little more just regular rain, right? And not these very intense, these very intense storms that sometimes come with this summertime. Just one moment here. And I see a lot of comments coming in. I'm sorry, just one moment here. Got a few people texting me. Okay, I apologize. I'm just trying to kind of keep up with my sources of information here, make sure that we're staying on track. So we'll continue to watch as the storm moves south. But as I was saying, it's hard to tell exactly how intense these storms are going to be when they move into your area, because there's plenty of times that they weaken very quickly and then they strengthen as well. So as these storms come in, hey, we could continue to see those kind of hit those severe limits, or we could see them quickly lose those severe limits. It just depends on what happens when it moves through your area. We'll take another kind of broad look here, and this is there's a lot of hurry up and wait involved with these storms today. As they continue to move south, you're going to hit Midlothian first. They're going to hit Midlothian first, and then Red Oak, and then go on from there. And I'm sorry, just one more moment here, folks. I think we've got some technical issues going on. I know there's nothing you can see, but it's some of the stuff on the back end. Okay, I apologize. We're having to take care of some things kind of in the back end here that are giving us some issues. So as this continues to move to the south, it's okay. Well, one thing. Okay, now that we're seeing this, looks like the radar's finally starting to pick up some of these lightning strikes. We are going to see frequent lightning from these storms. Okay, so these are not the kind of storms that you want to be outside on your porch looking at. You need to be inside, because even though these storms are weakening, you do need to be paying attention to the lightning that could be going on with these, that is likely going on with these storms. And so this outflow boundary, it may bring some light rain, but the main event's going to be with all of this activity. Looks like really the biggest part of this storm now is right here on the county line between Dallas and Kaufman counties, and that looks to track more probably into far eastern Ellis County, maybe right there along the Trinity River, more likely probably into Kaufman County as it goes forward. So the heaviest of the activity that's moving towards Ellis County is going to be in the Cedar Hill area right now, from Cedar Hill to Duncanville on over towards Grand Prairie here. So this is the really the worst of the activity. We'll take a look at the winds here. So we do see some winds here, and I know that you're probably looking at the reds and the greens. I don't see anything concerning as far as rotation. I don't think that we're going to be looking at any kind of tornadic weather today, especially with that outflow boundary going out ahead of the storm. And then we could be seeing a little bit of small hail just north of Cedar Hill, but I think that's probably going to be the most of what we end up seeing through there. So again, this storm is weakening. It doesn't look like we're going to be dealing with a whole lot more than some heavy rain, frequent lightning. There will be some gusty winds with this. I don't know that we're going to be looking at very strong winds from there. And, we'll be looking at the stronger winds and some of the small hail. If this storm does intensify, I would be a little more concerned south of Maypearl, Waxahachie, Palmer. I think this storm is in a lowering cycle. But when it gets through that mid part of the county, it may have time at that point to cycle back up a little bit. But I think northern parts of the county won't have to look at the worst of this. I think that if you're in a flood-prone area, then that may be an area of concern as far as that's concerned, because this doesn't look to be moving too terribly quickly. I mean, we've been on air for several minutes now, and it seems like this thing is just creeping southward. It was moving fairly quickly, or at least it definitely seemed to be moving quickly. Part of that was me trying to race home to where I could go on air. But as it continues to move southward, it's not moving out of any areas all that quickly. So it gets there, and there's going to be plenty of heavy rain. So that's why I had that flood, those flood concerns earlier when I shared that severe weather analysis. Pretty much we were looking at the biggest possibilities being the wind and small hail, but the flooding, especially with the recent rains that we've had, could be another issue as well. And I'm just watching the comments, watching some more updates here, just trying to kind of keep up with what you guys are saying. And for the most part, you guys are just seeing the heavy rain and the wind. A few power outages across the area. I really don't think that we're going to see a lot of power outages. Really, I think it's going to be mostly in those rural areas that we'll see those. And so moving forward, I think that power outages won't be as big an issue, at least where the power lines are underground. Now, where we have these stronger winds blowing through, yes, we may very well see some of those power lines getting jostled around and that kind of thing, and that may cause some issues. So just going back through comments here, kind of seeing what you're experiencing. Yes, I've seen multiple people say that power is out in the Rocket area. Appreciate that report. That is noted. And then 287 to 360, strong winds blowing through there. So that's going to be the winds actually in the storm. So here's 360, here's 287. So right there between Midlothian and Mansfield. Now in the Maypearl area, that is where you're seeing the outflow boundary. So that's going to be the boundary that's ahead of the storm. That again, just like yesterday, this outflow boundary does look to be losing some of that intensity. Now, as the outflow boundary starts to fizzle out, that's when we could see the storm actually start to intensify again, because that's going to allow more southerly flow. And I see a lot of comments about Mint. Men Exteriors. I'm sure those guys know that Synergy Roofing is sponsoring this stream, and they can take care of any issues you might have from strong winds or large hail, any of those kind of things. So make sure you go to Synergy Roofing for those concerns. As I've said before, I don't like to interrupt these severe weather events to plug a sponsor like that. I mean, you got Jimmy Porch over here who's kind of statically there. But if you promote them in the comment section, I'm going to honor my commitments and the people that have stood with this platform to make sure that it is successful and that you don't have to pay for this important information. No tornado concerns today. I really don't think we're going to be looking at that too much. Not looking at any rotation right now. Any rotation that might be there, I think, is going to be very brief and relatively low-key. Relatively low-key here, and I'm getting a question here. Okay, that's a long. I'll have to answer that. Rhonda, I know you sent a message. I'll have to answer that afterwards because it looks like kind of a long message. So we will we'll continue to push here, and then if you want to send questions in, I'll try to screen those on air. But if it's a longer question, I'll be happy to get with you after the broadcast. So this outflow boundary is definitely, man, every scan seems like this outflow boundary is just falling apart. So I want to move this over so we can kind of see this. You see this outflow boundary is falling apart. Something interesting that's going on here is you see the outflow boundary kind of losing some of its intensity, and then right between Midlothian and Pecan Hill here, you see this new pop-up. So that could be a sign that we could see some strengthening up of this storm once again. I've mentioned it many times, they can go up and down, they can swell up and they can intensify and they can weaken, those kinds of things. But we could very well be seeing some new life out of this storm a little further north than I was thinking. So as this outflow boundary continues to fall apart, again, that's going to allow some of this southerly flow into the storm to continue to go on from there. And you know, this is moving into Ellis County here, so Midlothian, you're going to be getting heavy rain. Red Oak, Oakleaf, Avila, really the like I say, the 75154 zip code here, going to be getting plenty of heavy rain very shortly. Ferris is starting to get that now. And we'll kind of pause the radar to kind of take a closer look at this. As I mentioned, over here north of Crandall, really the strongest part of this storm, I don't see anything like this hitting Ellis County quite yet. But I do think that we are going to be looking at the strongest part of this, at least being in this area for a little while. The heaviest rain continues to be just moving out of Grand Prairie here, at least northern portions of Grand Prairie, continuing to move through Duncanville and Cedar Hill, moving into Midlothian now. So, you know, just right there along 67. Mansfield getting some heavier precipitation right now. Britain obviously getting a pretty good pounding from that precipitation right now. And then Ferris getting some heavy rain as well. We'll take couple of quick looks at some details. So continuing to see some stronger winds from about Mansfield over to Cedar Hill. Not seeing damaging winds in those areas. I don't think that we have to be too concerned with that. And I am keeping an eye on, you know, you have the reds and the greens here, and of course anytime we see the red and the green next to each other, we have kind of those concerns of rotation, but I don't think that we're looking at that at this point. I think we are okay, you know, for now, and part of that is you have the winds from the outflow boundary and then the storm coming in. Sometimes that can look a little bit deceiving, but I don't see anything that looks like rotation or tornadoes or anything like that. I don't think we have any tornado concerns today. I know that's been brought up multiple times. Not seeing any hail indications over here. Just some pockets of heavy rain south of Mansfield and then over in the Cedar Hill area. And then over, like I said, over towards Heartland where that strongest part of the storm is. We may be looking at some hail in that area from Heartland down to Crandall, but I don't think we're looking at anything too terribly intense for that area. So we'll get back to this kind of this traditional view for you, and more development ahead of the storm. Okay, we've got, so yeah, I think what we're seeing is kind of rejuvenation of this whole line. So let's take a fresh look at this. Look how quickly, let me put this into a loop view here. This is how quickly this is blowing up. So just south of Red Oak here in the Ovilla area, look how quickly that blows up. And then even along the outflow boundary here in the Rager Springs area, that's popping up just south of Venus as well. So all of this is new activity that's popping up in our area. And okay, so I'm hearing that parts of Midlothian now are without power. Okay, so parts of Midlothian without power. I'm getting some updates here. And speaking of power, I'm going to have to charge this phone pretty soon too. I don't recommend what I do to anyone who can't handle an overload of information, because it really is like drinking water from a fire hose to kind of get everything connected and get on the same page with everything. It's just crazy as it happens. But I'm going to probably set up another screen right over here to start kind of keeping up with some of the power outages and those kind of things. So I may need a moment here and here in just a second to take care of that. But there are, let's see. So yeah, I'm getting reports of the power outages, and Bo, I appreciate you posting the Encore page. That's probably what I'm about to use in a moment. So I am hearing the power outage south of 287, kind of the 287 14th Street and 9th Street area in Midlothian. So that's kind of just north of Mountain Peak there is where I'm hearing that there's some power outages going on, and that may affect won't affect my operations, but may affect some folks' ability to watch this as they go. So Matt's going to continue to do what he can there, and he's going to continue to keep me informed. I appreciate his report and the reports that we're getting in the comment section there. But as this moves in, we are starting to see kind of a rejuvenation of this activity, and we're just seeing all of this stuff popping up. And I know Waxahachie's starting to hear some thunder now, and power outage does continue in Rocket. I'm aware of that one, and more power flickering right along 67 there in Midlothian. Okay, yeah, so mostly Midlothian with the power outage issues right now. Midlothian power is either out or flickering, and then in Rocket as well. And I'm not able to pull up the numbers yet on the power outage numbers in Ellis County quite yet. I'm gonna try to get that set up here shortly. I'm hearing there's sirens going off in Cedar Hill. I don't know what kind of sirens you're talking about, if that's first responders, I would imagine. So I don't imagine we would be hearing the outdoor sirens at this time. Nothing really warranting that at this moment, unless it's the strong winds, possibly. But the main issue here is that, we've been expecting this line to move through. Now we're seeing this development all across Ellis County. Let's kind of zoom this out a little bit to kind of show this is all popping up very quickly. Very suddenly there, and so we're going to continue to keep a close eye on what happens in Ellis County. And I mentioned that this outflow boundary was starting to kind of fall apart, and that was going to allow more southerly flow into the storm. And as that happens, that's going to create new convection. And sure enough, the atmosphere took my words very literally and did just that, just blew that up. And so as we continue to watch this across northern parts of Ellis County, now moving into southern parts of Waxahachie, just look at this. So look at this. Okay, this is a great and Bo Davis, I appreciate you updating that. Bo, if you can give me a current number of customers affected in Ellis County, that would be great. I don't have that up right now, but if you could Bo, if you could publish that number, that would be great. And the information he just passed along, and he's saying if your power is out, you can text out OUT to to Encore, ONCOR. I imagine there's a numerical kind of companion to that. But if you do have a power outage, you can text, and you are an Encore customer. There are folks like myself who are on a cooperative, but if you are actually part of the Encore system, you can text out, O-U-T, to Encore, O-N-C-O-R. Just spell that out with the numbers on the phone. And I'm like I say, Bo, if there's a numerical, I can't really pull that up right now and look at that, but if there's a number coinciding with those letters, let us know that too, so that people can get the clearest idea of what to do in the event of that power outage. If the power is out and you are on a cooperative, I would recommend giving them a phone call. I'm on the Navarro County Cooperative here, and they are very quick. There was a time when they were actually here before I even had a chance to call them. So they do a wonderful job. And obviously Encore is a much larger operation, may take a little more time to get to you. But as we continue, we're not looking at southern Dallas, northern Ellis County anymore. This is blowing up all over Ellis County here. So this is the unpredictable nature of these kinds of storms. Let's put this back into motion here. And you can see from Venus all the way almost to Maypearl, down to over to Waxahachie, almost up to Red Oak, and then down to just about Bardwell there. All of this new activity that's just popped up and is making some racket in our area. I'm actually going to go ahead and grab a laptop here. See if I can get this connected to some additional information here. I should have had this set up already, but and there's all the noise, of course. But I'm going to set up another source of information here. And I'll continue to keep an eye on this going forward. So, okay, so if your power is out, you're going to send that to send OUT, or send the number 688 to 66267. And again, that's out to Encore. And then, again, that's 688 to 66267. If your power is out and you are a Encore customer. So all this new development here just happened in the last few minutes, and is evidence of the fact that we are getting this southerly flow, this rich Gulf moisture, again feeding these storms and feeding this very unstable and completely, by this point, uncapped atmosphere. I mean, there is nothing, absolutely nothing barring any of this development. And you can kind of tell that as we go a little bit wider. Once again, just like yesterday, Ellis County is kind of the center stage here of these storms. A little bit of activity in northern Johnson County and far eastern Johnson County there, but in central Ellis County, it's really, really just blowing up from central Ellis County onto the western parts of the area. Still getting reports. Okay, we're getting some reports of hail near Heritage High School there in Midlothian. So it sounds like we do have hail increasing there. Let's take a look at that. As we see new development, I think the existing storms will intensify as well. And the storms that do develop will intensify quickly. And we're seeing some of these brighter reds and some of the brighter yellow, or excuse me, green now, brighter green, and we see some yellow in there, but that's not really, that's kind of a distortion there. So the green and the red, those brighter colors are what we're looking for as far as those wind speeds, and they are picking up. So even though the old storm may not be at severe limits, we could be seeing those quickly intensifying here. So here's Venus, here's FM 157, here's 67. So just off of 157 there, just north of 876, we could be seeing some hail in this area. I think this is really, we're going to see most of the hail that is, associated with this storm. But aside from that, maybe a little bit south of Mountain Peak here, I'm not seeing, normally the gray is what you look for a pretty telltale sign of hail going on in a storm, but I'm not seeing that south of Mountain Peak here. I think we can safely say that that's not occurring there, and not in an extreme fashion at least. We're not seeing the large hail, the inch in diameter hail that normally prompts those warnings. just off of Rager Springs here, we're seeing some heavy rain as well. We're seeing the red. That's going to be very heavy rain. I don't think that's hail, but definitely some heavy rain. Okay, I'm seeing some reports. Okay, so I'm hearing hail on Pig Road. So it looks like we are getting hail here, and it's very likely that this is maybe an older scan, and this could have quickly intensified to the point where now we could be seeing some hail from that area. And okay, so I'm seeing the comments that looks like 588 affected customers in Ellis County on Encore. Now, those numbers are constantly changing, and so it could very well mean that is an old number that will be updated shortly. Here's this storm in Rager Springs, and we are getting reports of hail in this area. So, you know, we looked a second ago, and there wasn't hail on the view we were looking at, but now it does look like we're getting some reports of small hail here. And, okay, so, and I'm watching information from the National Weather Service as well. And they're speaking about a weakening trend in these storms. Thing is, though, the old storms may be weakening, but we've got all this new convection that's popped up here that doesn't look like it's weakening at all. So this is going to continue to move to the south. And as we saw just a moment ago, if you're south of this activity, you don't need to wait for the storms to get there, because it may very well blow up very, very quickly where you are. In fact, we're getting rain now at the studio. We're probably in this area here, so that's the part of the storm that's raining here at the studio now. With the power outages going around, hopefully we don't have to deal with that in our area. So I'm going to continue to, and I know that we're getting messages as well. I'm checking some other information here. I know we're getting messages on the page as well. I try to screen those when I can, but when I'm live, kind of hard to do that. So if you're sending a message, I will probably have to get back to that after some time. I'm just checking some other details here and pulling up some tools to continue to run this stream. Checking in with some folks here to get some more information. South of Venus here, I think we're probably looking at some hail there. We were getting reports in the Rager Springs area too of hail there. We have more development now. Rain going to be moving into the Ennis area. Hearing that there is the rain is just starting up there. So let's put this back into motion. And again, you can see that we had the storms moving south, but then all of this convection just blew up right ahead of it. And none of this looks to be moving anywhere. It looks like it's just kind of popping up. So a little unclear of how much it's moving or if it's moving at all. And that could be dealing with some issues. It could be delving out some flooding rains in some areas. I don't think we're going to see mass flash flooding anywhere, but we could be seeing in some flood-prone areas some flash flooding occurring, especially in the streets and the ravines and the ditches and those kind of things. I think that's where we're going to see it first. But that may be another issue that we have to deal with out here, is the flooding rains, because we've had quite a bit of rain. Remember, we had a record drought that was broken by a record rain, and we've had on and off rain since then. So flooding will be another concern today, especially now that we have new development with very, very quickly developing downpours. I mean, these things blow up and immediately start dumping rain. So, I won't be surprised at all if we are seeing some flooding issues out there. And if you're on the road, if you're listening to me talk about this and you're heading into one of these storms, I would pull over, take some time, because it's very easy for these rains, especially in these red areas, to be blinding and to just make driving around very, very difficult. So, don't be too surprised if there might be some struggles there. Might be some struggles driving and kind of getting around there. And I appreciate your continued reports here. I'm going to go back through the comment section and kind of see see what we're hearing here. Okay, so I'm just looking through kind of what your reports are, and I'm just hearing it's pouring in a lot of different places. And that's kind of where we're at. It's going to continue to pop up like this very, very quickly. Okay, strong winds in Alma. That's going to be owed to the outflow boundary that just came through. But I won't be surprised if there isn't new development in Alma very, very soon. Okay, plenty of heavy rain in Venus. Yeah, so hearing that, and obviously we kind of have this donut hole here from Palmer over to areas west of Waxahachie, just there, Pecan Hill. So this area, I'm sure, will probably get filled in very shortly because we have all of this development that's very quickly happening here. The strongest part of that storm now headed to Scurry. So this is outside of Ellis County and neighboring Kaufman County. That's where the strongest part of the storm is right now. We're not looking at anything quite that intense in Ellis County, but some of the Ellis County activity looks like it could already be weakening a little bit, and this might have been some activity that just very quickly blew up, and then it kind of weakens a little bit. So we'll continue to monitor all of this. And as we zoom this out, let's take kind of one more broad look at the area. So activity now intensifying across Johnson County. Let's zoom in on the Johnson County area from Venus here to Alvarado, Keene, south of Joshua, all the way up to the Crescent area there, moving down towards Cleburne. Cleburne, you just got that outflow boundary, and then all of this activity is intensifying now as well. So northern, really most of Johnson County from Cleburne north, having gotten some rain. It looks like it happened just south of Burleson. The nice thing is the radar location is right here, so fortunately that was spared. But plenty of heavy rain happening in this kind of thin line that has just developed there. So I'm going to continue to watch some new information here. I'm looking at the comment section here. And, people are asking for rain amounts, and I don't have any kind of forecasted rain amounts for you yet because this is all kind of developing and increasing and decreasing in intensity very, very quickly. So very hard to predict any kind of rain amounts here. Very hard to predict any of that. So I can't really give you a forecasted rain amount. It kind of depends on what develops over your area, what happens to move in, that sort of thing. So we'll have a better idea on the backside of this, obviously. Now, the Severe Thunderstorm Warning does continue for about another 25 minutes, and that's the only warning that's in effect right now. So the Severe Thunderstorm Warning was obviously canceled for areas north of here. So the warning goes from about Alvarado, Grandview, up to Lillian, on east into Ellis County from 5 Points over to Ennis, to Bristol there, covering the northern parts of Waxahachie, including Waxahachie, but northern parts of Ellis County. Italy, you're not included in that. Bardwell is just to your north, but that doesn't mean that you may not have some severe activity move into your particular area. And I continue to get some messages here. I'll check those after the stream there. But we're seeing tons of new activity popping up here, and it's just gotten here, so it's hard to know exactly how fast it's moving, where it might be moving. That's why I'm becoming more concerned about flooding, because it doesn't look like any of this activity is moving southward at any real pace. It just continues to develop and intensify over the same areas. So if you're in a flood-prone area and you are getting one of these downpours, I would keep a close eye on that as we go forward, because we could very well, very easily see some flooding rains here as a part of all of this. So as this continues to move to the south, We're filling in the gap here in the Ennis area, getting some rain there. But it does look like generally this activity is not quite as intense as it was, kind of stretching down towards the Abilene area here. No indication yet from the National Weather Service if they will extend this warning as we continue to build this stuff down to the south. But it looks like the most intense activity really is in parts of eastern Johnson County. And of course, we've been talking about this little section over in Kaufman County here in the Scurry area that does seem fairly intense. But for the most part, not really expecting too much severe weather in Ellis County just in the next few minutes, aside from the frequent lightning, the heavy downpours, and some gusty winds. And asking someone in the comments asking how long this is going to last. Well, for part of that, it kind of depends on where your location is. And hearing something about what the Texas Storm Chasers said, I don't know anything about what the Texas Storm Chasers are saying. I'm not keeping up with them. But I'm looking, something about 70-mile-per-hour winds. I don't think I've seen reports of 70-mile-per-hour winds in that area. And the storm is well south of Oak Cliff now, so that must be an old report. Okay, so strong winds in Waxahachie. Looks like the heavier rain is moving south of Waxahachie now. South of there, also continuing on to the west. And this is one of the more unpredictable times of the year to really try to understand what these storms are going to do. We were talking about the storms that were moving south, and then all of this new activity just popped up. So very hard to predict. That's why it's hard to get those rain amounts. It's hard to tell you exactly what time something's going to happen because you have no idea if this is going to pop up. This morning I was looking at this arriving between 6 and 7 o'clock. Here it is 4:30, and we're right in the middle of it, ahead of even when those storms would have been moving through. So, okay, continuing to look at the comment section here just to get your information. Yeah, things are kind of winding down a little bit in Midlothian. You're not getting the intensity that you had earlier today. And let's kind of take a look at the velocity here. Looks like the strongest winds are probably from about Maypearl over to Grandview to Sandflat and Keene there. Now south of Alvarado. And we'll check and see. Looks like if there's any hail going on, probably in the Griffith area, south of Venus to the northeast of Grandview there, west of the Auburn area. So this is probably where we're going to be seeing any kind of hail that might be going on now. And you might hear the baby in the background. He's disagreeing about something. Not really sure what's going on there, but we can't argue with the rain too much. I appreciate my son bringing me that cord. Got to keep the phone charged because man, this looks like we might be sitting here for a minute here. And as I mentioned at the top of this, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I was out running errands with family. This is the second day in a row that's happened. The baby wants to be on the stream again. Perhaps, maybe he's missing his few minutes of fame here. Not too sure. But as we get back to kind of showing the storms as they are, okay, everybody's asking to bring in the baby. We'll see. We're trying to do serious work here, folks. But we'll continue to watch this activity as we're getting new stuff popping up here. I want to put this back into motion to kind of see to what extent there may be a little bit new development here in the Abilene area, and you'll kind of see it all kind of popped up, and then it's not. We do see some southerly movement in this eastern part of the storm, but to the west here, I'm a little more concerned about flooding because it's just not as intense as it once was. So as we move all of this south, and it does look like the Cedar Hill area is starting to clear out, you'll start clearing out pretty shortly in the Midlothian area. Scurry, you're finally getting a break there in Scurry, I think, shortly. And in the Crandall area there, my goodness. Heavy activity continuing here in Bardwell. Lake Waxahachie probably just starting to clear out from some of the heaviest activity. The Foreston area getting some of the heavier rain now. And okay, so the severe thunderstorm warning over in Hood, Johnson, and Parker counties has been expired, and the warning for Ellis County goes for about another 15 minutes. So that's this area here. Now the thing is, any of the storm that's severe in this warning, it's gonna be from about Abilene over to Waxahachie, up to Midlothian, over into the Maypearl area. Fortunately, Midlothian's starting to calm down, but this is the part of the storm that if there is any severe weather is happening there, and if there is any severe weather, it's going to be the heavier rain. Well, the heavier rain is not going to prompt severe weather. Flooding could. So if you have those flooding downpours, winds of 58 miles per hour or higher, or hail an inch in diameter or greater. I don't think we're seeing hail that size. I would be very surprised to see that in Ellis County. I think that the worst of this is probably going to end up being those winds. I think that's going to be the most intense part of this, just overall. And it does look like we could be strengthening a little bit of a hail core west of Griffith here. So south of Venus, west of Griffith. If you don't know where Griffith is, that's a small community out there west of Auburn. That's not on the map either. So let's zoom in and kind of give you a better idea. So here's Auburn. So to the northwest of Auburn, west of Griffith there, north of Grandview, kind of out in the open here is, if we're looking at a hail core, that's probably where it's going to end up being. Looks like that could be swelling in intensity for the moment. The outflow boundary has all but gone south of Ellis County, continues on from about Itasca up into western portions of Johnson County there. And, you know, we're looking at, and that's going to continue on here, and quite a bit of heavy rain in Granbury there. It looks like that is below severe limits at this time. I'm waiting to see what the National Weather Service is going to say about the severe thunderstorm warning in Ellis County. Because for me, it does look like this part of the storm, at least for the moment, is probably below severe limits. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I don't think we're looking at any hail in Waxahachie. It looks like all of the activity that could drop hail is south of Waxahachie now. Right around the Foreston area, I think, is where we could be seeing a little bit of a hail core there. But most of this activity has probably weakened below severe limits. Could be another hail core trying to develop there in Midlothian. So where you see those deeper reds is really the most concern I have. But I think Waxahachie, things are starting to finally kind of calm down there. Things are calming down a little bit in Ennis. We had this very quick increase in intensity of these storms and new storms developing. But aside from that, you know, I think we're looking at most of this activity starting to kind of start to calm down and lose some of that intensity. And then over in Johnson County, it's still kind of hanging on here. So this part of the severe thunderstorm warning may still be warranted from, again, around Griffith on over to Sand Flat and Keene there, just south of Alvarado there. Okay, Living Old Church Road in Waxahachie behind the barbecue place only had a sprinkle. So I guess that's a part of Waxahachie that's not had the heavy rain at this point. Strong wind and heavy rain in Foreston. Yeah, so that's going to be this part of the storm here. Right there, you see 5 points there, right in this area. That's where some of that heaviest activity might be. We'll zoom in on that really fast. So you have Nina and Nelson here. Okay, further south than that now. So yeah, here is Foreston, and or east rather of 5 points north of Foreston. Could be seeing another hail core trying to develop here. So that's going to be some of the heavier activity we're looking at. And thank you, Bo Davis, for the power update. 3,059 customers affected, according to Encore's Storm Center, which is that online resource. If you are in Ellis County and your power has gone out, text out or... okay, so let's see. Okay, so 3,505 affected customers in Ellis County. So text out to Encore or 66267 to Encore if your power has gone out and you are an Encore customer. Again, we have a lot of cooperatives. I know we have Hill County Cooperative and Navarro County Cooperative, so if you're one of those, that won't work. But if you are Encore, go and find Bo Davis's comment and use that to report that outage to them. It looks like just over 3,500 customers, Encore customers in Ellis County affected by power outages at this time. I appreciate him posting those bits of information in the comments. And this is all new development that we didn't have before when these storms were moving in. If you're just joining the broadcast, I know we may have some folks in the Forreston and Italy area that may just be joining this broadcast. I'm going to grab a drink of water here. So those folks may have just joined the broadcast. We're looking at, let me kind of go a little wider here, just kind of show what's happening. We had storms moving in from southern Dallas County, and as they approached, the outflow boundary was moving through as well. The outflow boundary weakened, allowed a resurgence of cool, or really of warm, moist air, and that caused all kind of new development here. Let's see if we can, let's increase the frame rate here, or the total number of frames rather, and just kind of show the history of this. And you can see where this line just got completely refreshed. It's moving out of Dallas County. Look at this. And then bam, you have that old line die out and a new line pops up. And that's one of the trends that we see with some of these storms, especially if that outflow boundary weakens, that allows that Gulf moisture to come in and kind of recycle the line so that the old line goes down and you have a new line that develops. So that's what we're watching right now across the area. Again, we'll see that move in, and then bam, it just kind of, the old one goes out, the new one comes in as that outflow boundary falls apart. So what will eventually happen is these storms will likely produce a new outflow boundary, which will likely cause that line to weaken, and then as that outflow boundary falls apart, that will allow a new line to increase. Now, that's not a guarantee, but that is kind of the balance there that you look for. So hearing reports of hail in Forreston, so we'll zoom in there. Here's Forreston here, here's 77, here's 35, and here's Forreston. Small little Forreston that is still there, though. Folks know that place on the map if you live there. And this is what we're talking about. You kind of see this deeper, darker red there. That is probably where we're seeing the majority of the strongest, the heaviest rain, the strongest winds, and possibly the hail involved with that as well. And just to the west of that is 5 Points, Bell Branch, that area as well, the Great House area here. Looks like you're kind of spared the heaviest of this, but there is still plenty of heavy activity to come. And that yellow line you see there, that is the Severe Thunderstorm Warning. Now, I've not seen any interest from the National Weather Service yet of extending this warning or issuing a downstream warning, meaning, one further south. Haven't heard anything about that yet. They may not have quite heard any kind of reports to substantiate that or seen anything on radar. It's about another 10 minutes for the existing warning that does conclude at 4:45. But I will say, let's get to where things are not happening. I would say if you're in Ferris, Red Oak, Ovilla, Midlothian, kind of starting to clear out now. I think if you're behind this line, you're probably done for the night. Unless we get some new development behind all of this, which I don't suspect, at least at this time, it doesn't look like we have anything filling in on the backside of this. Now, there is some rain filling in behind this activity from eastern Dallas, from about Mesquite, all the way up to Rockwall, rather, on up to Greenville. So there is some rain kind of filling in here, but nothing filling in, nothing substantial filling in behind this activity. Now, I will say that there is a new outflow boundary that's just been pushed towards the Fort Worth area, so it will be interesting to see what that does. That may move into northern parts of Ellis County eventually. Not really sure what we're possibly going to see with that, but for the most part, I think right now, from about Midlothian to Red Oak to Ferris, possibly as far south as Waxahachie, the parts of Waxahachie that are clearing out now, over to Palmer and even Ennis, these areas, you're kind of in the clear. Let me freeze this for a moment, just so you can kind of give a current view of what's happening here. So from Midlothian to the 75154 down to Waxahachie, Palmer, and I would say even say down into Ferris, you're in the clear. That's when this has kind of fallen away in those areas, kind of diminished. So you give those storms some time to roll out. As I've talked about before, you don't have to be right under the storm in order to get the lightning that can come out of them, but you want to give the storm time to get out of your way. But for the most part, you guys, things have cleared out, and I think I'm still getting some rain here at the studio, just a little bit, but not a whole lot happening there. But those areas, you are in the clear here, so things have calmed down there. The severe weather certainly has moved south of you. If there's any kind of severe weather concern, it's going to be here. Doesn't look too intense in Bardwell, so I'd really say from about Forreston on over to Maypearl and down towards the Grandview area is probably the most intense of the activity right now. And again, that's on the southern edge of the warning that does continue on here. You see the kind of the yellow lines here. That does continue on for about another 7 minutes. So it expires at 4:45 p.m. And just a few minutes from now, but I haven't heard anything about issuing a new warning to the south of this. They may be looking at that right now. I just haven't seen mention of that yet. So I will, of course, bring that information to you if necessary. So this is where the most intense activity here. We'll take a look at a couple of things here. Let's take a look at the wind speeds. Looks like let me actually compare that. Let's see. Let's compare this just briefly here. Okay. So we have, you see 5 points. We have this green, and let's actually put this all into motion. You can kind of see the dual view here. Get that out of the way. Okay. So we could be seeing a little bit of let's say a downburst there. So downburst is where you have those winds that come down and go out in all directions. So we may have seen some hail out of this and possibly some stronger winds. You can see kind of the brighter green. And if you look on the other side, I don't see anything rotation-wise here, but it does look like there was a moment of some heavier precipitation. Looks like that could be where that storm, the core dropped out of that storm. Those some hail came out of that. The strong winds hit the ground and spread out in all directions. So that may be the impetus here eventually of an outflow boundary here. What usually happens is those winds get ahead of the storm, continue to move on, and that's where you get your outflow boundary. But aside from that here, do one more check. I apologize for all the movement around. Still could be seeing some gusty winds out of this. You can still see where that outflow boundary is, kind of the remnants of that here in southern Ellis County, and then continuing on from Blum, from Hillsborough. Let me move this a little bit further up. From Hillsborough to Blum there, that's that outflow boundary that continues to move out ahead of this. But you can see the outflow boundary that just moved through Blooming Grove, moving through Corsicana right now up to, right up to Gun Barrel City here. There's not much of it there, so that has kind of fallen apart. The other thing I would say too, get a quick view here, is I don't see any kind of indications. I don't see any kind of indication of any of the heavier activity here. And okay, and I see that I'm covering up Ennis. I was showing Ennis a moment ago. But just as a note, I wasn't showing Ennis because you guys have cleared out. So things have cleared out in Ennis. There's not really anything going on there. Let's actually put this into motion here. Kind of adjust this back to more of kind of a live view. So it kind of, most parts of Ennis kind of missed out on the heaviest activity of this to the east and to the west. But, some rain did fall in the Ennis area. You got some of the winds there as well. But it does look like the Ennis area is, for the most part, cleared up. So I hope that answers that question for you. I wasn't showing Ennis much because there's not much happening there. For the most part on these streams, No news is good news, because if I'm not covering your area, that means there's nothing to be concerned about for the most part. Sometimes I have to be able to kind of move around a little bit, but for the most part, if there's nothing being covered in your area, that's generally a good sign. Heaviest activity continuing south of Waxahachie, moving into Abilene and Rankin and Bird now. Just moved out of the Bardwell area. You may still have some heavier rain there to contend with. The Thorston area, I don't know if you're still seeing some of that small hail. I doubt it. I think that storm has kind of weakened there. Heavy rain in Maypearl on down towards Grandview there, over in Hill County, southern Johnson County, and Itasca there in northern Hill County. So plenty of heavy rain, though, south of Alvarado. That's probably the heaviest precipitation in this coverage area that we have right now. Let's take a move over to Johnson County here. You can see kind of this thin line of heavier precipitation right now, going all the way from just south of Alvarado, just south of Keene, moving into Cleburne now, just south of Godley there. So Johnson County kind of getting the heavier activity here. And then, again, back to Ellis County. Heavier activity now moving into Navarro County there. And then, again, more in Maypearl and so on and so forth there. I'm still not seeing a whole lot of severe weather out of this. I'm not seeing the kind of intensity that, number one, prompted the severe thunderstorm warning, and number two, we saw when these storms very quickly blew up. But I've mentioned multiple times on this broadcast, there's always some flux. Flux up, flux down, intensifying, weakening. Those kinds of trends are always happening. And so let me just adjust something here. Got to get out of this low battery mode here, so it won't won't keep the screen won't keep dying on me. But this is where we're at. Let me put this back into motion here. Let me check a couple of things over to the side. And I'm going to check for, I know that I know there's plenty of messages and things coming in. I know there's probably some posts coming in as well. I want to make sure that I'm checking anything that might be pertinent here. Okay, so we'll continue to kind of keep a view of this. But so the severe thunderstorm warning has expired for Ellis County. So we'll go ahead and take that warning banner off of there. It looks like we're just going to continue to see some heavy rain moving south of Waxahachie here, towards the Ely area, moving into Maypearl, and so on and so forth. So I do think that we will be able to. Let me just grab something here. Okay, we'll continue to kind of watch this. But as this activity continues to move to the south, doesn't look like we're looking at severe weather. Looks like we're seeing a resurgence of strength in northern Hill County here, right in the Itasca area. So looks like that could be the most intense part of this for this moment. But we'll continue to keep an eye on all of this as we go forward. Thank you, Synergy, for posting there. As I've said before, kind of clearly in this post, this stream, if you're a paid advertiser for Ellis County, whether you're happily able to post in the comments there, but if you're not one of those companies, hey, I'm going to honor my commitments, right? That's kind of where we're at with that. So just in case you're thinking, well, you didn't let me advertise my company, there are actual advertisers and the reason there's advertising on Ellis County Weather is to keep this free, make it to where I can do this and I don't have to charge you to have this service, because I never, ever want to have to charge anybody to be able to access this important information. So as this continues on south, this is going to continue, I think, to weaken as far as Ellis County is concerned. Looks like the strongest part of this is in northern Hill County now. Maybe some hail developing in the Itasca area, but for Ellis County, looks like we're just looking at some heavy rain there. Still probably some gusty winds, maybe some small pea-sized hail falling here and there, but I don't think we're looking at anything too terribly intense for Ellis County. I'm going to continue to monitor this for you guys. Right now, the biggest concerns I have are really flooding for areas that continue to get heavy downpours. So if you're in a flood-prone area getting that heavy rain, please do me a favor and keep an eye on that. Follow those precautions as needed. Thank you so much for everyone tuning into this. Looks like so the next severe thunderstorm warning is on the other side of Johnson County there, but for Ellis County, things have wrapped up as far as the severe weather. I will continue to monitor this for you and bring